Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you watched any of my previous videos. My name is Brittany. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more content from me, things like vlogs, lifestyle, and travel content, which is kind of what today's video is about. So we're still in the midst of Vlogmas, and while this isn't like necessarily like I'll say Christmas or holiday inspired, all I always want for Christmas is like a plane ticket somewhere, so like 'tis the season. Anyway, travel is something I really love to do. Especially I feel like this past year, since like COVID restrictions and like all of that kind of has like the world is like opened back up. I've really got into like I feel like a lot of travel this past year, and also because I also transparently I do make a lot more money than I feel like I did maybe like 5 or so years ago. So I have more like budget to work with. I also like I don't have any kids. I don't have a partner, so I can literally pretty much do whatever I want whenever I want, which is something I also really leaned into this year. So I just have really like got back into like my travel vibe. So anyway, as we're closing out this year, I'm kind of already have some trips planned for next year. And so I'm going to talk about some of those and then talk about like kind of how I plan for trips, because like everything else that I do, I like to do things in like a way that is enjoyable and that I like, but I'm never ever trying to break the bank, because like why spend more money if you don't have to? So I talked a lot about like in my Amsterdam and Paris vlogs how I paid for those trips, and a lot of it was through credit card points, so that's something I use a lot. But then also just like just like being aware of like how to search for things, I feel like helps people save money. Because sometimes when I hear people talk about how much they spend on flights, I'm like, that is insane. Like one of my hard and fast rules, it's becoming a little bit looser because air travel is going up, is like I really don't like to spend over $300 round trip on a domestic flight, because it's kind of crazy otherwise to do that. You can kind of always like somehow finagle a deal, be flexible with your dates or something, and I just feel like sometimes people like don't look hard enough, and like I'm never trying to like break the bank, like I said. So trips I have coming up for this year, a couple of these places, actually about half of these places I've never been to before, half I have been to. So I feel like that's like the fun thing about travel too, is like discovering new places, or almost like rediscovering them. So like for instance, I'm going to Montego Bay in the spring, and like I haven't been there in like 8 years. And so I feel like I'm a different person than I was 8 years ago. So I will think I'll experience it in a very different way. So anyway, starting with one of the first trips I'm going on in January is to New Orleans, which I've never been to New Orleans. I've really wanted to go, and I just somehow have like never been. So me, my mom, and one of my sisters are going. We're going over Martin Luther King weekend, just because like I think we all already had the day, like the Monday off, and like I'm taking off like the Friday before too, so we'll be there for like an extra long weekend. And my mom's been to New Orleans a couple of times, but me and my sister have never been. And it's actually like the weekend after like the carnival season kicks off in New Orleans, which leads up to Mardi Gras. So no, it's not Mardi Gras weekend, but like basically that whole January, February up until Mardi Gras time is like, there's like parades, parties, like all that stuff. So I think it'll be a fun time to go. It also will not be crazy hot, because that's like the one thing about going to like some places like that are too it's just like sometimes it's too hot to be like to be in like New Orleans, like in a swamp in July, like 100 degrees. That's like not that enjoyable. And it'll also be kind of nice to like get away from Chicago in that time too, because it'll be like really cold then. Honestly, it'll only be a couple weeks after Christmas, so I'll probably still be riding the Christmas high, so it'll be like nice to like just kind of like keep that going. So anyway, I'm really excited for that. I've already booked my flight and everything. I did use some points for this. Honestly, flights to New Orleans were pretty expensive, and there weren't as many. So I broke my rule that I just mentioned, that like domestic price range rule, because there weren't as many, like there just literally weren't that many options, which I was really surprised by. But anyway, so I booked my flight there. We have our hotel booked. My mom is who like booked the hotel, and she used a lot of her like American Express hotel benefits that like I've already used all of mine for this year. She hasn't used any of them, and I think my sister's already used hers too, because we all three of us have the card. But so my mom like redeemed a bunch of those credits and stuff, and we were able to get like a pretty good deal at our hotel. So now it's just a matter of like figuring out what we're gonna do when we get there. So I'm really excited for that. So if anyone has any recommendations for New Orleans, feel free to drop those in the comments. I'm looking forward to that trip. And then in February, I am going to Walt Disney World in like late February for the Princess, what is it called? Like the Princess Marathon weekend. So I'm running the half marathon, not the full marathon. And so my friend Leah and I are both running it together. We did a half marathon this summer together. We ran a half marathon like years and years ago, like in probably almost 10 years ago, actually, I think at this point, in San Diego. And we just like wanted to do this race weekend. We actually only wanted to do the 10K, but it sold out like immediately. And then we both were, so I was like excited and like, well, no, I wanted to do this race weekend. So we just signed up for the half marathon, which is kind of crazy, like now thinking about it, because I'm like, now I have to train for that. But either way, it'll be fun. So the race I think is on a Sunday, and I'm planning on being in Orlando from like Friday until Monday. So spending like probably one day like going to the parks and then just like kind of hanging out and like probably go to downtown Disney, things like that. So I mean, I've been to Disney World like a decent amount of times like growing up. I just went there. This is 2020. I went there in 2022 with my friend Sam, who you saw in my Paris vlog. We went there together last year, and I used to work at Disneyland, so I'm pretty familiar with like the Disney vibe. But I'm excited to go to Disney. So again, it'll be kind of nice to go to Florida in February when it's not that hot. It'll still be warm, but not like unbearably hot. Like it'll still be kind of cold here in Chicago too. So again, a nice little weekend trip. And so actually for that, so I'm staying with my friend Leah. Her family has a timeshare in Orlando, so we're staying there. So like there's no cost involved in the hotel there. And then I actually booked my flight, I think round trip. Oh no, I used points for like one leg of the flight on Southwest, and then I had a flight credit for the other half of the flight. So I think I ended up paying $30 out of pocket, which was not bad. So I was like fine to pay that. So like this is gonna, I mean, I also had to pay to like register for the race, which was a couple $100, I think. And then I'll like pay to get like tickets to Disney, but I actually asked for a Walt Disney World gift card for Christmas. So well, maybe I'll get like a little something on that, but I think that will be like not too terribly expensive of a trip either. So I'm really excited for that. And then in March, I'm going to Montego Bay with my family. We usually go on like a week-long, pretty big vacation every year. So in 2020, we didn't go on one, or in 2021, we went to San Diego for a week, like around Christmas time in 2021. And then in 2022, last year, we went to St. Lucia, which was really nice. And we went there in December, which was again a good time to go. It was still really, really hot, but it was like not like unbearably hot. And so I think going to Montego Bay in March, although it'll be kind of like spring break time. So my dad does work at a school. So we kind of like, we're going during his spring break week. I think it'll be like, so it might be a little bit crowded, but it's also, we're staying at like an adults only resort. So there won't be like a bunch of crazy kids running around. So we're going to Montego Bay. Like I said, I've been to Montego Bay, like I think it was in 2016, and I went to Ocho Rios in 2011. So it's, I mean, I've been to Jamaica twice, but it's just been a really long time. So I'm excited to kind of like do that again. Also have just like a relaxing week-long vacation. So, and we booked that over Thanksgiving actually, because there was like some sales going on. So we booked our hotel there. So, and I still need to book my flight. Flights actually, like that flight is looking like it might end up being a little bit, I say expensive, but like I just mean expensive to me. So what I think I might end up doing is, and I kind of like, this is again one of those things where it's like, when I talk about my tips, I'll talk about something like I'm planning on doing for that to like make the cost, I think, comparatively like go down. So I have that planned for March. Nothing planned for April. I need to like probably stay at home. And then May, I'm going to Stockholm and Copenhagen with my friend Sam. We planned this a while ago. Like I booked this in October, I think. And so it was like, what, 7, 8, 9 months before we are even going to be there. So this is, again, I used like a lot of points to like book my flight. We're staying at an Airbnb for a couple days, which was not terribly expensive. It was a couple $100 each. And then we're staying in a hotel for a couple days too, because we're kind of splitting our time between like the Stockholm archipelago, like all the little like islands, and then like in Stockholm city too. And then I'm gonna go to Copenhagen for one day, like basically on my way back, because it was just easier to fly out of Copenhagen and then Stockholm, and they're like not that far apart. So those are all the things that I already have planned and booked, and most of them I think are they're almost paid for, except Montego Bay. I still need to buy my flight for to go there, but otherwise everything else is pretty much paid for. So like that actually will feel nice like going into 2024, and especially like when the trips happen, it's like they're gonna like feel a little bit free. So I actually just had this idea the other day. This is something I think I am gonna plan. And if anybody's trying to go with me, let me know. But I think I'm gonna go to Montreal for my birthday. So like over Labor Day weekend. I don't know where this, like, I think because I still like kind of want to go back to Paris, but like just looking at like kind of everything I had going on next year, I don't think I can fit that in. Maybe, we'll see. But and then I don't have anything planned really after that trip in May. So I still have the whole like back half of the year, which I do really like to be in Chicago during the summer. Because it's just like nice here and there's like tons of stuff going on. And I just like love like Chicago in the summer. But also it's expensive to travel in the summer. And like I said, like I don't have kids. I don't have to plan around that kind of a schedule. So I would rather not travel in the summer if I don't have to, because it's just more expensive. So I don't, like I just haven't planned anything for the fall, but my birthday is in September around Labor Day weekend. And so I think I want to go to Montreal. And I had been talking about wanting to go to Montreal last year, I think. And I like a random idea just like came to me. And then I was thinking about it again. I was like, oh, I think that could actually be really fun. And I think I can, it's like a really easy flight. I think it's 2, maybe 3 hours, if even that far from here. And again, I think it's something I can like figure out. Now, if I plan it this far in advance and know that this is something I want to do and like budget for, I can like make it affordable or like work within my budget. And I started looking at some Airbnbs and stuff too. And there are some decent ones that are not very expensive. So honestly, I might just book an Airbnb because most of them are fully refundable, just to like find a good price and then plan around like my flight and everything and like figuring out if anyone wants to go with me or whatever. But I think that is one trip that I haven't actually booked yet, but I still want to plan for 2024. So now that I talk about all those trips, I feel like anytime I talk about all this like travel that I'm doing, people think I'm like made of money. Okay, like I said, I don't have kids or anything. I don't have anyone else to pay for, but I'm also not made of money. I'm also a single person, so I still have to pay for all of my bills by myself. But I love a deal, and I love to like scheme a little bit and not scheme, but like, yeah, I guess scheme, figure out like how to make things work for me. So I guess like how I go about travel planning in the first place is I have a job. So I have to figure out how much PTO do I have and like how am I going to use that PTO and try to like maximize it around like holidays, like things like that. Like luckily I have summer Fridays in the summer. So it's sometimes can be nice to plan a weekend trip and not have to take off a Friday. Like I could just leave Friday afternoon and then like be wherever I'm going to go and not have to like use PTO for that. So that's something that's like really important to me, like maximizing my PTO. And then from there, kind of figuring out like what can I afford. I'm gonna be honest, like when it comes to budgeting, I'm not like a super hard and fast budgeter, but I like to say, okay, I think I could spend $400 on this flight, or I'm willing to spend $600 on 5 nights of like a hotel or something like that. So just figuring out like roughly what I want to spend and then start searching for things and finding like what works within my budget. But really, I like to not spend money at all on any of those things. I like to use my points like as much as possible. So I always like first look on like American Express or like see if I can like transfer points to any like flight partners, because I truly look at spending points before I look at spending money, because I would rather not spend a dime out of my own pocket if I don't have to. And I have been able to make that happen like for myself. So I guess I should say first I look at points and then look at like what am I willing to spend on top of my points. And I think too, like what I did this past year, and I think this is something I'm going to try to do going forward, is how I already have all those plans for 2024. It's helpful to know like, okay, these are the things I'm thinking about doing the rest of the year, and then figuring out how to budget, even like budget my points and stuff. Like, okay, I'll spend 20,000 points on this trip and that'll still leave me X amount for this, and then I'm gonna keep earning them still back too, like on spending throughout the year. So I think like planning ahead is something that's like really helpful too. And also like becoming a savvy traveler. And by that, and what I mean by that is figuring out like how to like make flight times I feel like work for you. So like how I said, that flight in Montego Bay is looking like it's really, really expensive. Because when I was looking at like direct flights from here to Montego Bay, from Chicago to Montego Bay, like there were, especially like going back, like all the direct flights were like, I'm not even kidding, like some of them were $1,000, and I'm not paying that. Like there's absolutely no way I'm paying that much money But there were flights that were way less expensive that had like a layover, but like a long, like a 10-12 hour layover. And I was like, okay, well, like, then that's kind of a fun way to make like another like one night trip. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is probably booking a flight like that, but in like a layover in like Miami or something. Cause then it's also like a short flight each way. Cause like here to Miami, I think is like 3 hours. And then Miami to Montego Bay is probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's not like a super, super long flight. But then it's also like a literally like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollar difference. But then also like, even though it's like might be a short layover, I could still go like get like a fun dinner or something like that. And like most airport hotels, they're not like fancy or nice, but they're usually pretty cheap and it's easy to get like from the terminal into the hotel. And then if you wanted to take like an Uber or go out anywhere, it could be like pretty easy to get back and forth from. So I think that's something I'm gonna try to do for that trip, just to make it like a little bit more fun. And also just because like sometimes leaving on vacation is like sad, and so it's like, let's stretch that out a little bit longer. And like luckily like the dates that we're going, I can make it flexible in terms of like getting back. I don't have to worry about like work or anything. And then when I mentioned that, like for Stockholm too, so when I was looking at flights, there weren't really any direct, well, there was one direct flight from Stockholm back to Chicago, and it was leaving at like 6 a.m. or something crazy. And I was like, I'm not even gonna set myself up to take that flight because it would be kind of silly. Like I just would be nervous to miss it. And like, that's like literally a whole day then that I don't even get to spend it where I am. So as I was looking at flights, so many of them kept having layovers in Copenhagen. So it'd be like Stockholm to Copenhagen, Copenhagen to Chicago. And I was like, okay, well, obviously Copenhagen to Chicago is a readily available direct flight. So why don't I just fly out of Copenhagen back to Chicago or like back home? And then it's pretty easy to get from Stockholm to Copenhagen. And it was also way less expensive too. So I booked my return flight from Copenhagen. And so I'm flying like Chicago to Stockholm, staying in Stockholm, and then I'm gonna take a train from Stockholm to Copenhagen, which it looks like they cost like under $100 or so. And it is a long ride. It's like a 4-hour train ride, but whatever. And then I'll get to spend like, basically about 24 hours in Copenhagen. And then I'm flying out of Copenhagen like that night, like that next night back to Chicago direct. So it all worked out and I saved a little bit of money, and I was able to like use like hotel credits and stuff from American Express to where I'm like my hotel like in Copenhagen, I think it was under $100 that I like paid out of pocket. So it ended up working out better, and I'll get to see like another new city along the way too. Another thing I'll say too about like as a pet owner and traveling is like, obviously I have to find someone to watch my dog. And so, I mean, now Rumi is 3, so she has calmed down quite a bit, because before I didn't really like leaving her with friends because she was a handful, to be honest. And I was like, these people are not going to want to be my friend when I get back. And I just don't even want to put any of my friends in the position to be like, this dog was annoying, because I would get that, especially being gone for like a week. And so my sister has watched her a couple of times for me for like a weekend or like a day or two. But mostly what I was doing was boarding Rumi, and it was just getting too expensive. It was just an extra expense. It was like when I was calculating like how much I was going to spend on whatever trip, I'd have to add in a couple extra $100 to account for boarding. And well, that was fine, in theory, I guess. And like, I just feel like the cost of everything has gone up. So like the boarding went up, and I'm just like, okay, I'm paying more to board. I'm paying more for like everything, like across the board, And so one of my friends from work mentioned, she's like, oh, have you ever tried this service called Trusted House Sitter? And I didn't know what it was, so I like looked into it, and she's used it. Some of her friends have used it. And what it is it's pretty much like Airbnb kind of, but for dog sitters. So how it works is like, as the pet parent, you pay like a yearly fee, which I think it was $140 or something like that. And then the pet sitters also pay a fee, but then no one pays anything after that. So like, I don't pay for these sitters to, like, I don't have to pay the sitters, and like they basically get a free place to stay because they stay in your apartment or in your home while you're gone. And then they look after like your whole home too. And they're like background checked, like all that kind of stuff. Like you can see all their social media profiles if you want, like their Airbnb, like Rover profile, like all that kind of stuff. And then there are like referrals or like references built into the website. So past people who have used them can like leave reviews for like how things went. So I have used that a couple of times I've used the same sitter for 2 trips. Like when I went to Europe, she sat for me, and then when I went somewhere else for like 4 or 5 days, she came back, and it was just nice because like that, like to board rooming for 8 nights would have probably cost me like $600, and that's just like, that is a lot of money. And so I actually have an interview today with like a different pet sitter that she is interested in, like I think 2 or 3 of the dates I have for next year. So hopefully like that works out, and then I'll have the same person come like multiple times. So again, that's just like a way that was like helpful to, it's someone that I trust now. Like I'm able to like have this service, like background check them, but then also like I can build trust with them. They get to like explore a city. I also like to find people that are either like originally from Chicago or are familiar with cities, because I don't want someone that's never been in a city then responsible for taking care of my dog, because that is a little scary. But it's like, yeah, that's like another way that I've figured out how to like, again, make things work for me. So anyway, I hope that some of that information was helpful. I am excited for 2024 and like all these like trips that I have to look forward to. If you made it this far in the video, I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe. Let me know if you have any travel plans for next year, like anything I need to add to my list. Or like I said, if you've been to New Orleans or Stockholm or Copenhagen and have suggestions, let me know, because I would love recommendations of things to do, because those are 2 places that I've never been before, and actually Montreal too, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be on my list, and I've never been there either. So anyway, like I said, thank you for watching. Check back for more Vlogmas content and all of my travel content to come in 2024. But thank you for watching. See you on the next one.